my career started off purely in finance. I worked at Pricewaterhouse. I'm an accountant by trade, and since then, moving along, I've held various positions, and then I opened my own company. It's a boutique consulting firm, but we sort of gravitated a lot into technology, and this is about making technology work for business. So from a finance perspective, you sort of know what a business needs, what it needs to run, what it needs to be successful, and you get straight into the numbers. But how do you accomplish that? And we work with banks, insurance companies, normal businesses, and we sort of help them leverage technology to become, more powerful, grow, etc. Then I started to get a little bit more into the startup environment. There's so much exciting stuff because what my experience showed me is that, you have amazing technology. You have Microsoft, you have Oracle, you have SAP, you have a whole line of them that does amazing things. But the bigger they are, the harder they are for them to be able to embrace agility. So when the startup scenes came on and you have all these emerging techs, the thing is with the big ones is that they cannot adopt and develop emerging techs as fast as, smaller businesses or startups or like young people who sort of coming on board and, coming out of university. All these universities have labs and incubators, and they are encouraging people to think differently and embrace new technology. So I did some mentoring with some of the big companies to help people attract investments. And when you work with new technology, it's really exciting. And you think, oh my God, I could do all this. But it sort of comes down to how do you monetize this? A great idea is an amazing thing. And you get really excited and you get sucked into it because it's so exciting. But how do you monetize it? Because at the end of the day, people are going to put money into you only if you can make money.
That's right.
And sort of be able to pay back. It's not, like I always laugh when I see, oh my God, this company raised 30 million or 20 million, whatever. And you're thinking like, you have to pay that back. You're going to give up shares. You're going to have to find a way. You're going to pay that back. And so like I work with some of these companies, and it could be like young people, it could be older people who have a dream and found something. And I work with them to sort of help them build a business plan, get their investment memorandum, set their strategy, know their market, and be able to sort of deliver, something robust so investors could sort of put money into it. And it's an emotional thing. It's a beautiful thing, but it's very, very emotional. And I actually started to invest as well. I'm an angel investor. And now we're raising our fund, which is very exciting. So we're going up for some other tickets, and we are broaching not only new from a, like ICT technology, but we are looking at things in healthcare. We are looking at renewable energy. We are looking at entertainment, all sorts of interesting things. So that's my trajectory to where I am now, and where I go from here. I mean, it's working and talking to people like BizzTalk, meeting new people, and getting out there, right? Because everybody want to find that sort of diamond. And
that's right.
And like, where are most of the diamonds right now? They are unpolished, still on the earth,
right?
And we need to get to them. And this is why this conversation is so critical.
I love it. I'm so glad to have you on here today, Videa. It's been we've had the pleasure of meeting and talking a few times on at some other events, and I'm really excited for this. I also have to apologize to the audience. I'm a little under the weather today, so if you kind of hear me sounding bad, it's just me trying to push through. No COVID, but just seasonal allergies that this really it takes it out of me.
Hear that. But
no
we
worries,
can't tell.
No worries.
I can't tell. If you didn't say it, I would not have known.
Medication is a beautiful thing. It's.
Oh, you say that, and I have some right here because I'm like, okay.
That's right.
I feel a little bit. This is winter, right?
It's
And
basically winter, yeah.
it's funny. You walk into somewhere and you cough, and everybody's like looking at you like, "Oh my god."
Yep. Exactly, exactly. Okay, so today, I'm really, really excited about our topic today, and Videa is the perfect person to help us start this topic. But what we're talking about today is how can investors leverage virtual events, and what do we mean by that? Traditionally, business events, especially industry-specific events, regional-specific events, or when it comes to technology, have been a place for investors to discover new technology. And startups, of course, go to these events to try and find investors or try and find clients or whatever it might be. But 2020 has just really thrown a huge wrench in that. And I would say that investment was down a little bit earlier in the year, but I'm starting to see investment in startups surge back. Seen some incredible numbers. Yesterday, I saw that someone raised a pre-seed round of 65 million. Totally crazy, but that's the world we live in. So the question that I have, and in talking to other investors, virtual events haven't yet provided the same return to investors seeking startups that to invest in. But I believe that there's still a huge opportunity for investors to do that. But how, in your opinion, Videa, how do investors leverage virtual events to keep finding deals? Because if investors can't find deals, then they're not going anywhere.
What happens?
Yeah.
It's a fabulous question, and for me, how I found clients and how I found companies I wanted to invest in, I was associated with a number of programs, accelerators, incubators, reactors, all sorts of fancy tours name that sort of came about. Universities, again, they sort of propagated all these young startups, and they played a very important role. But one of the things I found is that coming to the tail end of last year and early this year, it started to get a little bit stale because it was all about the hype. It was all about, here's your elevator pitch, let's have fancy music and a big sort of arena, and people just go in and pitch. And whilst investment took place, it was very difficult for investors to be able to assess these businesses properly, because the hype took over good, solid analysis to be able to make some of these investments. And one of the things, like I took the opportunity to sort of write some notes here and sort of go back into my history and figure out, some things you can't give up on. Having an elevator pitch was one of the focus, right? You have to be able to say something in 10 seconds and blow them away and they'll invest in you. I mean, that's crazy, because you could have one of the most fundamental, amazing technologies. Take, for example, you can be able to produce vaccines in a very quick manner and be able to put it, like, I don't know, in some little patch or something. People can stick on, and all of a sudden an entire continent is vaccinated in days.
Right.
But if you have an extraordinarily beautiful, wonderful scientific mind talking about that, and you have 10 seconds, you can't do it. So all of those investments would have been parked because they can't get their point across in 10 seconds. That's not going to happen. But somebody who could rival Snapchat, they could definitely do it in 10 seconds, and they could look all, and they get the money. So basically, I think what this has done, it's sort of like level playing field. Because now when you virtualize it, you can have an agenda. You could set an agenda. Investors have the opportunity to really go thoroughly into what is being asked. It's not just a pitch deck. It is, what are you trying to achieve? What is the problem that you're solving? Who is your market? That is so important, because, it's not build and they shall come. It's actually, who is your target market? Because as I said, at the end of the day, you have to pay this back. Right. And and even ESG, sort of like environmental, sustainable, these sort of projects, they shouldn't be thinking it's all about, all we have to do is fix the environment. You have to be an ecosystem. You have to bridge this gap. You have to continually be able to produce and fulfill a quota, get your revenue in, pay your stakeholders, satisfy everybody, sort out the economy, and sort of move on. And that is what we need. And after we come out of COVID, all of these governments need to pay this money back. So it's going to be really tough, but it's a massive opportunity for investors to find those rough diamonds, be able to assess them, have a nice, solid, online is beautiful. You have an agenda. You stick to the agenda. You set the agenda. If I'm saying something to you now and we had 100 people on, I can visually show all the topics, all the points. You're not going to have people are talking here, there, noise, distraction, lights. You are focused on this moment. And the thing is for investors is if they're sitting at home and they're going through all of this, they are not pressured in any way. You could really assess far more companies that you would want to invest in, and you have that consistent message. But also, you know, being able to talk on screen like this and have your personality there and engage, you're relaxed, you're happy, and you're in your home environment, then all of a sudden, you know, you could get your point across. And those people who have not been able to get investment in the past, they certainly will be able to get investment now.
Absolutely. I definitely see it as a bigger opportunity for, again, if it can be done right, for startups to be discovered, because now instead of being limited to the investors in my geographical area, I can talk to investors all over the world and very easily. And this has been a huge thing. One of the things that, again, feedback from other, you know, investors that we've talked to is, while that's true, now it's global and there's more access and I can, you know, they can theoretically talk to a lot more startups. One of the problems that they're finding is it's a little bit harder to filter relevancy, right? Because investors don't, just because you're an investor doesn't mean you invest in everything or anything. You have expertise and you have kind of a box idea of what you're going to invest in because you understand it, right? There's theoretically nothing more dangerous than investing in something you completely don't understand. Even if it's a great opportunity, if you don't understand it, how can you manage the investment going forward? So my question and their question as well was, how do investors filter that down? I know that investors don't want to look at 500 pitches a day, right? They'd rather look at, you know, 100 relevant pitches, you know, or even 5, as long as they're relevant to them. How do we accomplish that in a virtual environment like this?
You know, that's a fabulous question. And that is, when you have sessions like this with a specific topic, if you deal with it industry specific and, you know, people who are in that circle specific, you start to be able to filter through it quite a lot. So let me use myself as an example. It so happens that I've been around for so long. I make myself sound so old. I've been around for so long that, you know, I have a huge network. So for example, we have one person on this call that I met through a friend of mine, and he sort of introduced me. Would I have met somebody from, Adolfo, where are you from?
Hey, hi guys. Nice to be here on the phone. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, I'm in the UK. I mean, you're in the US, Jason. So how do we get access to somebody like Adolfo? I would not ordinarily have done it if it wasn't for somebody that I know that knows him.
Right.
But, you know, relevancy of him being able to say, okay, we're going to have a particular session, an online session, where people with technology that is looking to sort of disrupt news or video or anything like that, he would be signed up to it and he'd be able to get an opportunity to speak. His reach now is reaching investors all over this world. And where he is, I mean, maybe there wouldn't be a huge market for it there, but his product is a global market. So there's going to be investors who are going to be like, you know what, we want to see more of this guy. And we do have the technology where you could have breakout sessions where you could take it a little bit more detail and dive into it. So I'm very excited because now investors could have a targeted market. People who are pitching have people who will understand what they're talking about and they're not overlooked. And, I think it's actually going to be genius. What's coming out of this is going to be a new hybrid of how these events are going to take place.
Absolutely, absolutely. Adolfo, again, glad to have you here. I'm getting a little bit of feedback from your mic. Can you mute yourself again? Sorry.
Is that okay? Yeah.
No worries. Thanks. Sorry about that. Fantastic.
I think it's a Starship Enterprise. It's,
Is it the Starship?
Yeah. I mean, what could you say? It's just noisy in space, right?
Hey,
it is.
That's right.
It is quite silent in space. I'm just out here in the kitchen, in the home kitchen, and it's noontime here, and we don't have daylight saving time in the Dominican Republic. So have the mom over. It's a little bit of family gathering, so I'm just out here in the kitchen.
We are delighted to have you. Thank you.
I'm very
That's
happy.
right.
Thanks, Videa and Mike.
Awesome. So kind of moving, moving on to my next thoughts here. On the same token, I mean, what would be your advice to startups that are really trying to leverage the same environment? I mean, obviously, we want to give advice to investors here on how they can reach startups, but what should the startups be doing? How can they really leverage this environment, and
absolutely,
how can they find the right investors? Because there's lots of investors, but there's also, how do we find the right ones?
That's a brilliant question. And you know what? Investors asking the same thing. How do we find the right company to invest into? And my advice for startups, is like, really spend the time to understand your product, the problem you're solving, your market. Understand your market. If you understand what you're trying to do, you will be able to get investors, because investors normally give a little bit of a synopsis of what they look for.
Right.
Once you know what you need, then you'll be able to find the right investors. So take, for example, if somebody only wants money, that's all they want. They just want money, and they want a silent partner. There's certain investors who, investors never really will stay quiet because they want to know that their money is being used properly. But
right.
They're gonna have that. If you're a startup and you need experience in marketing and growth and stuff like that, you're gonna choose an investor who has a market that you could tap into, because you have this cross-pollination of investments that could take place. So your growth will just go boom. If you're a tech company and you have an amazing piece of technology that sort of works really, really nice with Google, I mean, go to Google Accelerator and Google Ventures, who would invest in it potentially if they like it. Because when you sort of tie your tech up with their tech, then you have somebody who's also a potential exit strategy, as well as their knowledge and their ability to help you refine your technology, which sometimes they sort of invest people hours, man hours, technology hours, not only a money perspective, and it will take you to the next level. It's key that you find an investor that is complementary to take you to the next level.
I like that.
Is so critical. It's not about the money alone. It's a very lonely thing being an entrepreneur. It's so lonely, and you
don't have to tell me twice.
You spend so much time thinking like, oh my God, what's gonna happen if this happen? I have payments to make. I can't afford to give people increases. I have, the customers are not gonna sign up, or they are signing up, but we don't receive money, for a month time. I need bridging finance. Do I raise again? I mean, it's so lonely. But your investor is a helper. Your investor is going to be able to give you some advice and say, hey, look, one of the things you could do factoring, right? So if you're going to have, you're going to receive money in 2 months' time or whatever, I know somebody who's a good factoring company. We could put you in touch with that, and they could sort of, give you 80 cents on the dollar or something like that. So you get your money up front. if you're sort of worrying, like I can't meet all of my people's salaries or something like that. If your investor have other businesses that they've invested in similar, and you could cross use your people into other projects, you could do that. Because don't think of it, I'm this entity and this is it. You should be able to share your knowledge, your skills, and everybody actually is enlightened and grow better. And that is so important. And this is my lesson learned as well from running my business, right? And having those conversations with myself, and feeling that pain, but never give up. Your partner is out there. Your investor partner is out there.
I love that. I love that. And I think a lot of startups, they forget that their investors are not just for writing checks. Their investors
Absolutely.
are most of, I would say that a lot of the investor environment that I've run into they were already successful entrepreneurs. They're investing now because they've had successful exits. And so they know what to do. They know how to get there. They know the same problems that you're experiencing. And so, being able to tap into their experience is huge.
Absolutely.
They've probably seen the same problems that you're running into right now. It may have been 10 years ago, but some problems are the same for startups forever.
Always.
So,
the business model, if they look under the hood, they're all exactly the same. And one big piece of advice, don't forget, be honest with yourself. Be honest with what is working. Always, every single week on a Friday, before you drink that beer or have a glass of wine, or milk, if you're like me, you just think like, what worked this week and what didn't work this week. You constantly have to be honest with that feedback and be ready to know you've made a mistake and this is how you're going to deal with it. And it always catches up with you. And if you're, giving status reports to your investors and stuff like that, and, you're sort of stretching it a little bit because you don't want to deliver bad news.
Right.
It's not the way. You manage the expectations. If it's bad, they understand it was going to be bad. If it's good, they would think you are amazing. You thought there was going to be a problem. You dealt with it. It's come out good. Fantastic. And, it's so important to do that. Just get ready to face that mirror and look at yourself properly.
I love it. Last few minutes here, because this show is primarily geared toward the event industry, kind of in general, and a lot of our viewers, a lot of our guests come from event organizers, that kind of thing. How can event organizers who are trying to manage this COVID environment, this no in-person events, how can event organizers cater to investors in this environment? What can they do to make these events more attractive for investors to come?
That is such a good question. No, I've actually looked at a few events that I'm seeing, and it's all over. There's tons of events, right?
Tons. So many.
It has to be interactive. Okay, it has to be interactive, and it can't just be having tons of speakers and short time slots to actually cover things, because you had to dive deeper and get into certain things. You have to be able to highlight key topics, key areas and stuff like that. Always have one major subject that sort of run through all of it, like a complete use case. And then I think investors will start, they would like this. They would enjoy this, right? And they would think, this is answering some questions. It's not just about getting speakers, having people come to it and pitch and stuff like that. We want to be able to see a ecosystem that happens. So take, for example, we have an event. Oh my God, I talk so much. We have a few minutes. Take, for example, we have something around agri-tech, okay? And we have investors, we have people pitching, etc. It's agriculture and technology. It's not just about the technology with agri-tech. So to make it useful for investors, you're gonna have people who want to look at circular farming or different types of farming. You're going to have people who's looking at it from IoT devices. You're going to have people who's looking at it from weather forecasting and how we do this, crop rotation, etc. You're going to have companies that have farming insurance. So I know a few of those as well. You're going to have microfinance, and there's so many categories. One topic, and you can have all those categories. So an investor will say, you know what, if we choose these 3 bundles and these 3 companies, we have just closed the circle on it. So it becomes richer, and investments cannot necessarily just be siloed. Gone are the days of thinking everything has to be a unicorn. It doesn't have to be a unicorn. Why is it that Amazon has done what Amazon has done? Amazon has the products, they have sussed the distributorship, and they know they have good, MI. They encourage people to build on their platform, and they created an ecosystem. So they are a massive investment company. You wouldn't think it, but everybody who's selling on their shops, they're actually taking the personal risk of stocking things and selling and doing all the advertising. And who's growing? Amazon. Because when people ask, are they going to say, I'm buying it from Jason's wonderful shop? They're going to be, no, I bought it from Amazon, and it's going to come in a box with a big smile on it. And I think from that perspective, we need to look at that circular economy of investments and how we link things together.
I love how you mentioned that. In fact, I was just reading about a company who just raised a pretty significant round of financing, and they specialize in acquiring companies that are selling on Amazon, and they acquire them at smaller valuations, not at unicorn status, right? But that's their business model. So investors could absolutely capitalize on that. Not everything has to be unicorn. If you could drop it, yeah.
Smash it together and you create one. Absolutely.
And I think that's what these guys are doing. You may have read about them. I think their name is Heroes. I think is the name of the firm, but that's what they do. And if you could drop an investment into a company and 6 months later they're acquired and you're able to triple your investment in 6 months, like, it doesn't have to be a unicorn. If you can keep hitting doubles and singles like that, I mean.
once you have that relationship and something builds on what's already there, that valuation just sort of goes up significantly. A table without legs, or a table, and if you buy the wheels for it, all of a sudden your table is worth more because it has wheels and all sorts of things. And I think you're going to see a lot more consolidation, syndication, and syndicated investments happening, because exactly what investors are looking for. Individually, these companies are not worth a lot, but if they were to close that circle, and they look at it, they realize, actually you have more, because you could upsell, cross-sell, do all sorts of things, and it's very, very exciting.
I love it. Videa, any closing thoughts here? We're a few minutes over, but I think we also started a few minutes late, so that's fine. Just any other closing thoughts for the audience on this subject?
Absolutely. I think don't give up, continue working, and if you need to talk to me, just drop me an email or Skype. I'll make sure and share my details.
All right, excellent. And then LinkedIn, is that a good place to reach out to you as
Videa
well?
Mike at LinkedIn. Absolutely. LinkedIn is brilliant. Connect with me.
Perfect. Awesome. Videa, thanks so much for being here. And again,
my pleasure.
I'm a little bit off my game because of this allergy stuff, but hopefully that wasn't too bad. I mostly let you talk, which is the whole purpose of the show anyway, is to let the experts talk. So thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Would love to have you here again soon.
My pleasure. Feel better, awesome. Jason. Bye, Adolfo. Thanks for coming in.
Bye-bye, Jason. Bye-bye, Videa. Kind regards.
Good to have you too.
Thanks,
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.